Hey guys, how's it going? It's Nailed Up from Team Canada FPV. I'm trying to start a winter race league with the Big Deal frame, the 3-inch from Raceflight. It's the Spec class. So what I want to do is try and get everyone to run the same sort of quad, so it evens out the playing field, and also we can have parts regularly available. We don't have to go searching for parts. They're just going to be standard parts that we can have on site. So to get started, what you need to do is make sure you've got all these tools. Heat gun, hot glue gun, turn on your soldering iron. You're going to need some scissors. I've got pincers, I've got nips, a knife, tweezers, a little pokey guy. To put on the screws, you need the, what is it, the 2.5, 2 millimeter. And I think for the camera you'll need a 1.5 millimeter hex. I just got some more tweezers, wire strippers if you get frustrated. Obviously some solder. You want a little bit of tape, scissors, and then what's in the kit? You'll need to get yourself a receiver, which came with your remote. Or in this case I'm going to be using a small TBS Crossfire receiver, lower latency, and it's pretty small. Obviously you're going to get the TBS VTX. I'm going to show you, but you will need to try and get yourself another antenna. This is an antenna from Tura RC. It's going to snap straight onto that UFL right there, and I'm going to be hot gluing that in to keep that secure. And that's it, that's all. I won't be changing the antenna. If you guys have a small linear, you can get a small linear with a UFL on it. That's going to be perfect as well. So let's go ahead and start. Clear off the bench, and then install the gummies on the ESC and the flight controller. Alright, let's get these gummies installed on the flight controller and the 4M1 ESC. And they're quite difficult to get in. What you have to do is just like shove them in there. And you need to probably get your, probably the 2.5 is going to work. And try and just push them through carefully, not to just destroy everything. And get them seated inside the little grommet groove there. There you go. So there's one installed. Try and get a bit more light on it. Okay, so do that for every single corner. Bing, 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 bing. 8 of them to install. Boom. You'll see the little black ESC FETs. And then in the bottom right hand corner here is a little PG. That's where I'm starting from. Now, what we need to do is solder every single one of the circles and one square, because square is the ground. So I'll show you here. So circle, circle, there's a square one here. I'm going to use that one, and then there's circle, circle, there's 2 here, there's one at the middle, circle, and then one here, then that's a square. So all the circles plus one square. Guys, so the next thing you're going to need is to connect the ESC to the flight controller. So get yourself out some motors. You're going to need, I think, 3 motors will be good. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to get your nips, snippers, whatever. And these are pre-tinted, these wires here, so save some time and use them. Alright, what you want to do is total length 20 millimeters or 3/4 inch, should be just about doing it. So there we go. Don't worry too much, but if you get that pretty close, then you're going to save a little bit of time and have a neater build. Okay, so cut them all to 20 millimeters. I'm doing. You're going to need about 8, so whatever, just get 3 motors out and do it. The motor wires in this are ridiculously long. Okay. There we go. Put the motors aside, you don't need them for now. And then all these cables here need to be stripped and tinned. So go ahead and you're only going to need a small amount of wire. Strip, twist, lean it on something, tin it. Okay, now what you want to do is make sure that the length of these really trim down. You don't want them too long, so it's best to do this now. You don't want them overhanging on the board. So if you have a look at what I've done here, is just a really small 3mm or 1/8 bit on the end. That's all you need. You've already tinted the wires, so some of the solder's sucked up into the wire. So now go ahead and see, if you look here, it's dirty. So I'm going to trim them both off, clean it up. Do that with every single one. And make sure that your motors are not close to here. Your flight controller, you're clipping away from all your gear, because it's quite easy for little bits of this crap when you're building to enter a little crevice or a little crack inside your board or inside your motor and stick to your magnets and then start giving you strife. Not straight away, but the worst ones are later on when everything's good, and then for some unknown reason, boom, something stops working. Okay, so now clean off all that crap. So push your wires up here, and then personally just make sure that I get my trash can and just pour all this crack in there. No, we don't want it in there. Nice and clean. No balls of metal. Okay, next guys, we've got the underside of where we just soldered back here. You'll see a positive and you'll see a negative. Positive and negative pad. Obviously, you're going to get your 16 gauge wire. You'll have to get some if you haven't got any, guys, or cut a battery or something like another battery lead. You want to put this wire on the right hand side, closest to the F in Raceflight here, and solder that down. Do not touch the circle or squares down the bottom, and do not go and touch the other components or the positive. So this one here will be on the right hand side, and this one here will be on the positive pad up here and on the left hand side. We're going to be careful to keep everything on that pad. Plenty of heat. Be careful not to touch anything other than the pad itself. Heat up the wire down onto the board. You should feel the cable getting hot. Position it, push down, position it, get it right. Positive pad up the top here, and this is going to be on the left hand side. That's how it looks. It's going to come out the back of the board. That's the back of the frame. It will poke in through these holes and then onto your ding like that and sit underneath. Okay, we're going to install these long screws here, these ones, or hex bolts, whatever you would like to call them. There is a little plastic hex nut that goes on them, so install those ones as well. This hole here, put that on, and what we're going to do is make a grommet here out of hot glue on this side and this side, so these wires can sort of sit and not rub in the carbon like in here, under here, because it can rub and then short out. Right, now is a good time to get your little tweezers. You might need some solder. Make sure your tip on your soldering iron is nice and clean. And we need all these little wires that we made before. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solder those wires to where we soldered on the tin before on the flight controller. Those circle pads there. Now we're going to do the other side. Okay, that's the 3 coming out there. And that's it done. Okay, now it's time to solder the wires onto the flight controller. Now don't forget that the 2 holes here are the front, because that's where the camera is going to go. And here's the arrow on the flight controller facing forward. That means on the left hand side is where the USB will be sticking out. So we're ready to go ahead and push that on to the flight controller stack, like so. And go ahead, and they're corresponding, just line up on top of each other. So you're going to have to go over and just line them up and solder them up. Good idea is to use your tweezers and twist those wires to connect over the top and then heat them up. Easy. So that's one side completed. Do the other side now. Check components that you haven't touched anything. Looks good. So that's it. That's on to the next step now. Okay, next guys is to install the aluminium standoffs, which are these guys here, and with these titanium screws or bolts, whatever you want to call them. So stick those guys in the hole underneath through here. Okay, then screw on your standoff like so. Use your 2mm wrench and tighten that down. Go ahead and complete all the other ones. There are 3. Okay, let's go ahead and install the motors. Hold the motor screw in there. Screw it on. We don't need Loctite. If you want to put Loctite on there, by all means go ahead. But it is not necessary if you tighten them up. Well, you don't over tighten them, that's the trick. You got to tighten them up so they're a little snug. And what I do is I loosely install each screw to the motor, just so I know it's like sort of lined up correctly, and then I'll go around and in an X pattern from bolt to bolt, bolt to bolt. Not really necessary for this, but it's sort of like mechanics, how you do it mechanics. So alright, go ahead and install all the motors on each one.